third wonderful speaker is Lizzy Jongma. Lizzy is a senior ICT specialist at the Network for Work Collections from World War II in Amsterdam. As project manager, she works on the implementation of linked open data, and she will definitely tell us what that means. And also crowdsourcing, collection search, and innovation in collections presentation. What is also important is that previously Lizzy worked as data manager at the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam on the Rijksstudio Open Museum, like Rijksmuseum Open Data, Rijksstudio, and niche sourcing projects. As you already heard from Marette, Lizzy was also an inspiration for her work at the SMK. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from Lizzy, who is also a board member of Wikimedia Netherlands and an open data advocate. So she'll definitely explain to us what these words mean in details. Welcome, Lizzy. We're very happy that you're here with us today.
Well, thank you for having me today.
We're very happy that you're with us. Yeah, go ahead. Floor is yours.
A lot has been said about new innovations, new experiences, new ways to work with audiences in museums. Today, I would like to focus on crowdsourcing, although most of you probably have a very limited idea about what crowdsourcing means. In the Netherlands, we use the word a lot of times for people transcribing digitized documents. For me, crowdsourcing is a lot more. It's about getting people involved with your collections, getting people engaged with all the materials you have in storage facilities or on display in your museum or archive. And it's also about community building with new audiences. It can be the people that visit your museum, but it can even be a Tibetan monk interested in your history, or someone from Tokyo that wants to see your Van Gogh when he's at home at night. I think everyone already mentioned is that times they are changing. Museums are changing from organizations where a specialist, a professional, a teacher, a curator is talking either in person or through a catalog to an audience. It's a very one-directional type of communication by which an expert is explaining something to an audience. I love this picture from the 50s of these schoolgirls paying a lot of attention to a teacher and a painting, and the teacher is, I'm imagining, explaining what they should look at, what is important in this painting and why it's in a museum. This setting, it looks lovely, but it's contrary to the experience most of us have in a museum, and that's the picture on the right. It's crowded, it's a lot of different people. There's no teacher, there's either an audio tour or an iPod tour or people taking selfies. So a lot has changed. I wouldn't want to put a value to that, but it's changed from a very one-directional way to a more interactive experience for the visitors. So the visitors are from just a receiving party, have become a participating party in the museum experience. And I'm still trying to get to my next slide. Yeah. So museum experiences, and actually it's more than just museum experiences, it's experiences with collections. They are changing. So objects from a museum are personal. People want to touch them. People want to immerse in them, want to feel them, smell them. It's very sensory, it's very involved. I currently work on collections of the Second World War. A lot of white men, for some weird reason, want to dress up like a soldier in the Second World War. We try and explain the Second World War to children by having survivors into classrooms and, you know, showing the objects. For instance, on the left top, you can see a survivor of the Auschwitz concentration camp showing his inmate uniform and talking to children about his experiences in a concentration camp. It's also very much online, especially since the COVID pandemic. Most museums in the Netherlands are closed or are very limited in access, and no one is able to travel. So most of our information, most of our entertainment is online. We don't go to cinemas anymore, so we're on Netflix. If we want to know something, we search Wikipedia. And we also see that a lot of people are getting involved in online experiences. For instance, on the right at the bottom, it's a Jewish monument for victims of the Second World War. And this is a very much community-driven website. So relatives of survivors or researchers or people interested help filling up information gaps about people that died during the Second World War. And this website, for instance, currently holds 104,000 biographical descriptions of people that were killed during the Second World War. And so these four keywords are, for me, very important in the new way that we can work with collections and that, you know, help us bring new ways of looking at collections to the world. This is where I come from. I started in the Rijksmuseum in 2012, and this is how we dealt with our collections in the Rijksmuseum. So we had this couple of very nice ladies entering keywords and metadata into the computer. It was actually a cataloging system designed to help us find our collections in storage facilities. So we put more energy in describing the width, the height, the length and the weight of an object than we did in describing what was being depicted on a picture, or why this picture was in the collection and what would be important about this picture. And I had to go back to the web archive to find a screenshot of our website in 2012. It's the grayish green thing you can see there. So we simply replicated the interface we had on our collection management system. We had a search box that said, enter your search phrase here. Most people didn't have a search phrase, so they would just press enter. And so our main search word, the biggest search word was enter. Everyone was looking for something with a title called enter, and you would never find something entitled enter. And while my colleagues were doing their best to describe works of art in the collection at the Rijksmuseums, and our curators were publishing articles in very good scientific research journals, everyone else was digitizing our collection. Actually, most people were scanning books that they bought in the Rijksmuseum gift shop or wherever they would buy books or postcards. They would digitize them, put them on their websites. A lot of people were very creative with one of our highlights, the milkmaid. And as you can see on the second line, someone put a nice filter over it. Someone else photoshopped a cat in it. People did the most amazing things with one of the highlights in our collection. Europeana wrote a nice report about this situation. It's called The Yellow Milkmaid. One of the issues with all of this reproduction by visitors online was that the milkmaid, everyone thinks that the entire painting is yellow because of poor digitization quality. But that's a side story. But this screenshot triggered us within the Rijksmuseum to reevaluate our digitization approach. So we suddenly became aware of the fact that while we were, going very slowly in our digitization projects, we would do a couple of paintings a day or a week or a year. And put them online in this very curated environment, always being afraid that someone would steal our pictures and do something nasty with it. That was actually the reality going on the internet. we just didn't pay attention to it. So by the time we had done 10 paintings, 6 billion digital users of in the internet had already digitized the rest of our collection and did weird things with it. So we decided to become a master of our own universe again and reclaim our own works of art by putting them online in high resolution with good metadata. So instead of getting a cheap rip-off of a painting in the Rijksmuseum, we would prefer people to use a high resolution, well-described image from the Rijksmuseum collection. So this is one of the statements my manager made in 2012. And that was that we should play a prominent role in the digital space instead of giving everything away to others and, you know, never know what they're doing with it. So we were trying to protect our works of art by giving them away, but then in a high quality way, so people could really do amazing stuff with it instead of reproducing ugly paintings. We also decided to collaborate with well, virtually all organizations with the O of open in their name, because we really wanted, if you share it, then you have to go, you know, you have to go all the way, be fully open, no limitations and no blocking, no banning or whatever. So we started collaborating with Europeana, with Wikipedia, with Creative Commons, and in the Netherlands with a grassroots organization called Open Culture Data. And that was a group of museum professionals that started organizing hackathons to really open museum collections. People later on said, well, you worked at the Rijksmuseum and the Rijksmuseum is an extremely rich organization. You have a lot of money, so it's very affordable for you to open up. You can give it away and you don't lose revenue and you have enough money to do things. Well, first of all, opening up the collection was one of the cheapest projects we ever did. I think every exhibition in the museum is more expensive than opening up our collection online. And we could debate the durability of one exhibition versus an open data collection that is still online. But I'll leave it at that. But what we did was try and find easy, cheap, manageable solutions. If you want to open up, it's a big statement, but if you don't have a budget, you have to be very smart in how you're going to open up your collection. The first thing that we did was look at the way we had configured our website. So we were rebuilding a new website. We already had high resolution images in our museum. We were already recording them, but that was for catalogs and for restoration and so on and so on. But we could combine these two. So the high resolution images, we could use them on our own website. And as a byproduct of our own website, we could even create an API and we could build Rijksstudio. So it was a full digital integration of all the systems that we had that actually made the API, made open data just a cheap byproduct of other projects that we were already doing. We also had a manager, Taco Dibbets, who's currently the director of the Rijksmuseum, who was very generous and quite visionary when he said, well, we're not going to just open up, you know, the things that people know, the Rembrandts and the Vermeer, just open up everything. So suddenly we had 120,000 images, works of art that we could put in the public domain and could open up through our APIs. And in 2013, this was the biggest open data collection a museum had ever shared. And of course, everyone else is now doing it. So it was just an amazing blow that we were able to open up museum collections in general and the Rijksmuseum collections in particular. So as I said, we started collaborating with this grassroots organization that organized hackathons. And the first hackathon was in 2012. And this was, in my opinion, also the most productive hackathon I ever visited. unfortunately. But we were all, we were all very energetic and in a positive way, very we were just very happy to do new things, new digital things with our collection, things that no one else had ever done. So we went in for weekends with programmers. And this is one of the first results from one of those hackathons. Someone used Facebook software to cut out faces out of all the paintings of the Rijksmuseum and made a gallery of it. And you could choose faces by gender, faces by century, looking left, looking right, looking up, looking down, and all kinds of things that were in the images. But a lot of these faces are just part of a huge painting. So we had never seen these people before, and you could really do very nice things with it. And thanks to this app, management at the Rijksmuseum was really fascinated by the possibilities of the digital world. And we were able to do a lot more with the collection. After that, a lot of boring apps were built, and I'm not sure if there are still a lot of hackathons going on. But it really helped us look at our collection with different eyes and use it in different ways. I don't know if you know the Rijksstudio, but this was one of the biggest things we got from the open data project and from the redevelopment of the Rijksmuseum website with the high resolution images. Rijksstudio is a bit like Pinterest. So people can search the Rijksmuseum collection and see objects, find objects in the collection, and they can put them together in a Rijksstudio, which is like a Pinterest board. You can collect it, you can put a theme to it, you can write small captions, and you can build your own exhibition with works of arts of the Rijksmuseum. And this has been very successful. I stopped counting, but the Rijksmuseum has hundreds of thousands of Rijksstudio boards that people created based on the collection. And the thing that I find very interesting is that everyone has a personal question, something that they are fascinated about. I would go, for instance, for the Vermeers, but someone else is interested in the color blue. Or for instance, this person is interested in insects. And a lot of these prints, they're part of a huge collection of prints. I think we have over 600,000 prints. These people are able to find prints that are hidden away in our collection, and probably no one else except for one curator has ever seen these prints before. For me, this is super fascinating because it teaches us how people are looking at our collection and what fascinates them. A lot of people are interested in color or in, for instance, fashion, garments, accessories. We keep on giving them paintings, but they may be interested in something else in our collection. And they may be interested in something else online than they are on site. And I will get back to this later. So we talked about revenue and revenue loss and not sticking to your traditional trades as a museum. This is Rijksstudio too. One of the biggest debates we had in the museum, of course, was when we said we're going to open up the collection, we're going to put a public domain license on all of our high resolution images. The commercial department panicked. They said, you're going to blow up our business model. We will not be able to make money out of selling our digital images for school books or whatever these images were used for. But with help of our management, we were able to get into a dialogue. And what we all decided was that, you know, as a public institute, it's your public duty to share your images. But we are not by law, we are not held by law to give away our logo or our name. So what the commercial department did was they put a claim on the Rijksmuseum logo, the Rijksmuseum name. So even though you're allowed to use our images in whatever way you want to use it, you're not allowed to say, oh, we did this in partnership with the Rijksmuseum. And that's actually the new business model of the Rijksmuseum. So for instance, Heineken, they could have downloaded images from our website and print them on their beer bottles and sell them. There's nothing wrong with that. But they wanted in their ad campaign and on their bottles, they wanted the statement, we're partner of the Rijksmuseum. So they wanted to show off that they sponsor the museum, and they're paying for being a sponsor, not for the works of art. Actually, we even told their ad department to go to Rijksstudio and find the images that they wanted to use themselves. So instead of having a curator looking for images for them for a very long time, the people of Heineken were able to find the images that they wanted to use. This is also Rijksstudio. You can nowadays see a lot of ads and design magazines, home decoration magazines, and they are using images of the Rijksmuseum as wallpaper, put it in frames, cushions on couches. It's being used for everything. And even though the Rijksmuseum doesn't get money for these kinds of reprints, this work of art is in someone's home. Someone is looking at it, and at a certain point, someone is bound to go to the Rijksmuseum to see the original work of art. And this is something Marita already wrote about in her book a couple of years ago. It's the Mona Lisa effect. We all know that the Mona Lisa exists, so we all want to go to the Louvre to see the original picture. And I think part of the community experience is that even though you see something every day, you still want to go to the museum to experience the original work of art. And that experience just is standing in front of a painting and looking at it, whereas this wallpaper, you can touch it, you can sniff it, you can do whatever you want with it. But still, people are interested in experiencing the original painting that their wallpaper was based upon, in my belief. And some people have a very interesting experience with this same picture of the threatening swan. Victor and Rolf, two Dutch fashion designers, used the Rijksmuseum collection for their fashion show. So this is an extremely nice video of a fashion model that comes walking out of a painting of the Rijksmuseum. So we have very commercial, home decorating, and very artistic reusages of our collection, but it all helps sending out the message that there are original works of art at the Rijksmuseum and that it's worth going there and seeing these works of art. One of the problems with IT, of course, is trial and error and things that die digitally on you. We switched from a physical museum to also being a digital museum, which also means that the Rijksmuseum has to put a lot more energy in maintaining this digital collection and maintaining all the connections to the outside world. IT is a lot easier when you don't have a website or a digital presence online, but when you want to be a huge digital museum, you have to put time and money and energy in maintaining your online presence. We put a lot of energy in not just opening up our collection for hackathons, create an API so people could download our images and do something with it in their own context. We also started creating linked open data. So we wanted to use digital two ways in our collection management. We wanted to share our images and share our metadata with the outside world, but we also wanted to know what was in it for us out there. So we had paintings painted by Rembrandt van Rijn, and we knew a lot about Rembrandt van Rijn, But there are other people out there that know more about him. There is, for instance, the Getty Institute that has this huge data set of all the artists in the world. And they know a lot of biographical data about these creators of works of art, not just Rembrandt van Rijn, but every artist in the world. So instead of writing our own biographies and trying to figure out when an artist had died or whatever, we wanted to connect or link to other resources online and pick the brains of other institutions and use their knowledge in our collection. So we didn't just want to share stuff, we also wanted something back from the internet. And linked open data is a very interesting model to say, I have an artist, his name is Rembrandt van Rijn, this is his identifier. Can you, Getty Institute, tell me more about him? And then connect through this identification number that you use or that the Getty is using. So we put a lot of time and energy in linking our collection to other resources online that could help us annotate and explain our collections a bit more. We also, at the Rijksmuseum, got a lot of input from visitors of our website, because a lot of people were searching and using our collections. We also got a lot of emails from our audiences saying, oh, this is not that and that date, or this is a picture of this person, or you've translated the Latin inscription wrong. So we figured, well, we can best get the crowds out there involved in our collection. Maybe they can help us metadate our collection. This was our first attempt, and I can tell you, I will never ever do this again. So we put a tagging system up on the Rijksmuseum website, and we told everyone, if you know something about this painting, please start tagging it. But it was heavily abused online. As you can see, the fourth tag from the left, it says www.apartmentsvermeer.com, which is just a commercial ad for apartments in Amsterdam. It also says at the 5th or 6th line, Stella is gay, which is just a really weird insult next to a painting by Vermeer. So this was our first attempt at the Rijksmuseum to start crowdsourcing and really give our audiences a place where they could add their knowledge. But this was this was not the right approach. So after a couple of months, we had to take this offline because it really blew up in our faces. But we tried to figure out how we could combine linked open data, so the knowledge of other institutes, other resources on the internet, and expertise from audiences that really wanted to help us. So we had audiences that wanted to abuse our systems, but we also had a lot of people that wanted to help us improve our collection annotation. And this is the first project that we did. It was a bird watching project. So we had a lot of works of art with birds on it, and our curators knew little about birds. So they would say this is a cupboard with birds on it, but we didn't know if it were tits or seagulls or whatever. So we got a lot of emails from people saying, oh, this is this type of bird and this is this type of bird. So we found out that there were a lot of people out there that knew a lot about birds, a lot more than our curators knew about them. So what we did was we connected the ontology of species, a huge database that has all the bird species in the world in its database. We connected that to a crowdsource tool. So people could click on a bird on our website and start annotating. And when they started typing, the species of the world system would suggest specific types of birds that would come close to what someone was typing. And what we found out was that people with a real interest in birds and with knowledge of birds would be very specific and able to pick out the exact right species of a bird in the list, in the drop-down list. We even found out that if people type very fast, that they have more expertise than people that are typing slowly. So what we figured out was that connecting your crowdsourcing tools to specialized databases is really helping, because on the one hand you get a structured annotation with always the same name for a specific type of bird, but it also filters out the non-experts that are trying to abuse your system. We did this project in collaboration with Wikimedia Commons, and we started collaborating with them. It was sort of an accidental collaboration. We had open in our goals at the Rijksmuseum, and we wanted to share everything with Wikimedia, but we didn't know so much about Wikimedia Commons until we did the Birds project. And some of the volunteers started uploading parts of our collection through our API and open data. And in the beginning, we didn't pay much attention to it. It was just sitting on Wikimedia Commons, and well, it's not our own website, so we looked at our own web statistics, but not at Wikimedia Commons, until someone, a volunteer of Wikimedia, pointed me to the GLAM Wiki toolset and said, look at the GLAM, the statistics for the Wikimedia GLAMs. And can you see what is happening to your collection there? So I looked at the statistics, and it was mind-blowing. This is the current statistics. So the collection of the Rijksmuseum has been sitting on Wikimedia Commons for 88 months now. And as you can see, I cannot even pronounce it. It's 2 billion something pages have been visited, and these pages all contain an image from the collection of the Rijksmuseum. So where your average museum website gets, I don't know, 200,000 visitors a month, these images get a page view of, I don't know, 5 billion something, and then you have to correlate it back to, this is 13 million over the month October. So the Wikimedia ecosystem is a completely new ball game for museums. Of course, you have to put a lot of time and energy in your own website, but if your goal is to reach out to a global community of people interested in your works of art, then you get a completely different scale of audiences on Wikimedia Commons and on Wikipedia, because these images are used in different articles. You can see on the right, for instance, that a painting of the Rijksmuseum is used for the description of Napoleon or Plato or the Rothschild family. So these images are used in contexts that make sense and actually help people understand what these images mean. The points I still want to make is that the images that you put online and share, don't just you put them on your own website, but do share them with platforms like Wikipedia, because they are used to describe stories that are important for sometimes even humanity, but also what happens on Wikipedia, for instance, with your images could be indicative for you as a museum in what the audiences are interested in, or at least online. So for instance, the top image is Antony van Leeuwenhoek. He's a very important scientist from the Netherlands, 17th century. His image is just hanging somewhere hidden away in the museum. But he is an important scientist, and in the current debates about, you know, science versus fake news, etc., his image is actually more used, more seen than, for instance, The Night Watch by Rembrandt, which is also an indication about what they say in German, the zeitgeist is. So I'll skip, oh, I'm going to go the wrong way. I'll skip most of these images. I can go into them if you're interested. But what we're currently doing, and I would like to conclude here, is take all the knowledge that people have and all the transcription, the transcribing work that they do for lots of institutes. So a lot of crowdsourced projects are about transcribing archival material. We are currently in my current project using all this data to reconstruct people's lives. So what you see here is not a one-on-one reproduction online of works of art, but we're using the mental powers of our crowds in transcribing all kinds of different archives, and we create a personal life of a war victim. So for instance, this little boy who only who died even before he was 10 in a concentration camp. His life is reconstructed from 8 different archival files that we found actually all over Europe. So we found them in Amsterdam, but we also found them in Germany and in Sobibor in Poland. And we combine all these snippets of someone's life to reconstruct his life. As you can see, we use a lot of different sources. These are the original resources. And the power of this is that this is when digital really becomes personal and emotional and is telling you something new that you never can do in an archive of or a museum, because all of these sources are scattered all over the place. And this is where we use linked open data to reconstruct something that was scattered by history. And for me, this is the power of digital that goes beyond the power of a museum. This is where we can reconnect everything that we have. I think I'll stop here. I can talk about this for hours, but maybe this is a good conclusion.
Thank you so much, Lizzy. This is actually really fascinating. And I do understand, I feel I could be talking with you for hours about all that. And we could stay here until the late evening. But yeah, and I see like on Anna Brzezińska is also chatting to us that we all could.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, because this is all really inspiring, and like I love to like maybe dig deeper into that. But my proposition is that we allow ourselves to have a short break now, and we go into details also of your presentation during the panel. Yeah. That will start noon, and also then we can invite our audience to ask questions. So please, everybody, keep your questions for the panel. And now we're gonna do a short break, and we're gonna start a panel discussion at noon, so in 8 minutes, so that we can all take a deep breath and prepare ourselves for the discussion. And if you have questions to Lizzy, please keep them for the panel so that we can then discuss it. And I will also have my questions to you. So thank you so much, Lizzy, for sharing all that with us. And yeah, and we're going to go deeper into that in the panel that will start noon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.